Welcome to episode 18 of Youth Empowerment Radio. This is part 2 of our special series on the power of youth voice and advocacy, how to inspire it, amplify it, and utilize it to drive meaningful change in the laws and policies that impact the lives of young people here in Colorado. Our Youth Move Colorado advocate, Carmen, sits down with Tori and Jordan. The material and information presented here is provided by Lived Experience Youth and is for general information purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are of those of the guest only and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Youth Move.
Behind that, there's that sense of, and I think it's well intentioned, but I think behind that, in the reasoning for that is because they're like, well, they're coming in with lived experience. There's a lot of like personal attachment to this, right? And how do we sit in that space? And I guess, what are y'all's thoughts on, I guess, that perspective? And then secondly, like, have y'all seen that happen, like, to the extent that they're so worried about that? Is that something we should be I mean, I think it's something we should be worried about, but should that be stopping them from incorporating genuine youth voice?
Personally, I feel like re-traumatizing the youth is, yes, it is an issue. But the issue and where that comes from is when the youth don't feel heard. So if you're incorporating youth into your program and you have fear that it's going to re-traumatize them, it's because you have fear that you're not going to genuinely listen to them. The traumatizing part of advocating for yourself is all of those years and all of those disappointments of being told no, or being told that your voice doesn't matter, or trying to say your voice and then being shown that your voice does not matter. Like, that feeling right there makes you feel like the smallest person in the world, and you don't feel like you can use your voice. And so the part that re-traumatizes people is when those feelings come back up again. If you're having fears about re-traumatizing the youth, then make sure you're listening to them. Like, it's easy to not re-traumatize them when you're listening to what they actually need.
Mhm.
I would also
Yeah.
say that we are similar to any other type of protected, or, well, I shouldn't say it like that. We are similar to any other type of person who has any kind of trauma background. So, like, someone who has PTSD isn't going to mention that lived experience in their interview, but if they have an episode, their employer, just has to make accommodation. And so some accommodation may need to be made. And in my organization, we have a program called Aspire that supports youth that are 14 to 24. And I only hire people with lived experience for my Aspire program. And that is an absolute qualification. If you don't have lived experience, I'm sorry, but you will not be considered for the job. Why do we do that? Because young people are going to have an easier time trusting and connecting to someone who has walked in their footsteps. And so we can sort of break down barriers and build a more trusting and stable relationship. And we see that relationship as being core to any other growth. And so if I have someone that I can count on, somebody that I know believes in me, somebody that I know is going to be there for me and support me in my dreams, and it's called Aspire because it's all about whatever their dream is. We don't have a prescribed path for them. We are saying, like, you're driving the bus, let us help you gas it up. And that's one of my big values, because I think that we have to create opportunities for people to show that they are leaders, people with lived experience to show that they are leaders. And I know people who are in wonderful, high up positions who have lived experience, and they hide their lived experience. And I don't like that. I don't think that we should ever have to hide our lived experience. I think our lived experience should be worn the same way that people wear their advanced degrees, with pride. And I think that especially when we're stepping back into the child welfare profession, that should be respected, and it's not. And the reason that it's not is because the people, the old school people, the social work type people who have been holding up the walls in child welfare are threatened by our presence. They have a bias against us. They've decided what we are, who we are, and what we're capable of. And those of us that have threatened to step out of the foster kid box and step into the child welfare professional box, for some reason, that threatens some people and they have an inherent bias against us. Another thing I hear regularly from professionals in the field with lived experience is that they're not treated like professionals or they're not treated like adults. They're not
Mhm.
treated the same way that their colleagues without lived experience, who are even younger than them or who have less professional or educational experience, are treated because of their lived experience. And that's a toxic bias that we need to weed out of the child welfare professional community. And like, I call on anybody who, lived experience or not, sees that in someone to call it out and recognize it and say, why are you doing that? Or why do you think that? And otherwise, we won't be able to change. But also, all of us who bravely and boldly, with all the confidence in the world, even though we know that they don't want us to occupy those spaces, step into those roles, push for those jobs, be in all of those spaces. That's the only way that the culture and the narrative is going to change. And we are doing that. And that shift is happening. And then I also think that any way that we can further diversify our child welfare professional community by further infusing people with lived experience makes it stronger. Because, like I said, this experience is lived, it's learned through life. You can't go
Mhm.
to school for this, you can't read it in a book. And they need this experience. If this system is going to get better, if the cracks in our child welfare system and our safety net for kids are going to be shored up, we need people with lived experience to step in and to be elevated to leadership roles and things like that. So I know it's happening in Colorado. It absolutely is a different culture than in some other states. And there's
Mhm.
much more of a focus on including us and creating, opportunities that are really authentic and really empowering. And I think that a lot of states are looking to us as a best practice model for how to do that and incorporate that in their models as well. And I'm always available for support and consultation for organizations that want to build that out through my Speak Up
Mhm.
program.
Going off of that too, personally, I mean, like, even when it comes to finding a therapist, like, I'm not gonna do therapy with somebody who has never, like, been in the shoes that I'm in, you know? Like, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna do addiction therapy with somebody who's never struggled with addiction because they don't know what it's like. And
Mhm.
I just feel more comfortable with someone knowing that they've gone through the same thing.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, I think that's a really important point that you mentioned, Jordan, around, therapists, and because I don't think I've ever kind of heard it posed in that way, and I think that's really valuable. And yeah, I guess, because we've been talking a lot about, or started to talk a lot about, just like youth peer support, young people participating. And I think this came out of our pre-recording episode when we were kind of creating some like things we wanted to talk about. And I know you all spoke about how the ways in which we offer participation, like offer, I don't know, offer up ways young people can participate is very specific. And typically it caters more towards perhaps like outgoing young people that feel more comfortable, with public speaking and different things like that. And, you both spoke a little bit about how we also need to create other diverse ways in which young people can participate so that it doesn't just cater to one personality type or one group of young people, right? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, ways that we can do that. Yeah.
I think you really have to meet the youth where they're at and temper your expectations for their involvement to their unique level. And you will have people who are more outgoing or who have done advocacy before who want to be involved. And that's a little bit more of a comfortable space for them. And to expect, an introvert who's never been involved in advocacy before to enter that same space and feel really comfortable and confident is just not going to happen. And so I think it's really important that we create not only group opportunities where people can enter at different levels and move up, but also individual opportunities. And that's one of the reasons why I do my free one-on-one coaching. And then I also have group workshops. I'm trying to create opportunities for every advocate to share their voice, build themselves up, and also every person is an advocate. And so, yes, advocacy is being on councils and going to the capitals and testifying on bills and making speeches and doing loud things. Advocacy is also writing letters. Advocacy is attending meetings. Advocacy is sharing posts on social media. Advocacy is talking to people in your life about your thoughts, values, and opinions. So it doesn't have to happen in this like big way that everyone sees. A lot of it happens in these really small daily interactions, and that is advocacy. And so for me, and my mission with Speak Up is all about helping every person with lived experience find their groove in advocacy. There's a role for everyone where they can advocate in the way that makes them feel absolutely comfortable and confident. And everybody's voice matters, everybody's participation matters. And we can't have these, big legislative changes and big things like that without every single level participating. And every
Mhm.
single level really matters. And you don't always see all the little pieces of advocacy that go in. You don't always see all the advocates that are lifting up maybe the one person who's speaking, but they're all there. And that's another reason why I do my foster think tank, which is an open opportunity for people to come in with lived experience and allies as well. And we have topics. Anyone can host a foster think tank. You can also just attend think tank in a listening capacity. You don't have to speak up. You don't have to be on camera. You don't have to, participate in the action steps that we're taking. You get to decide. Like advocacy
Mhm.
is by volunteer, by choice. No one's going to force you to do it. We want to empower you, and nobody's going to make you do something that you're not comfortable with.
Mhm.
It's all about empowering people, helping build them up so that they can get to the level that they're really comfortable at advocating. And there's levels for every single person, whether you're a seasoned advocate or an outgoing person, or you don't really know anything about advocacy, but you really want to do something. You really want to be a part of the change. Maybe you're really uncomfortable in group settings or you have social anxiety. That's okay. Your voice can still be absolutely heard through written
Mm.
form. It can be heard through virtual engagements where you can feel more comfortable and, be in a space where you can have everything that you need to do things that are outside of your comfort zone too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I really like what you said there at the end, like, how can I be a part of that change? And then I will add to what you said in a way that feels, right and honoring for me, which I think is what you were getting at as well. And I'm curious, like Jordan, if, within kind of organizations that really want youth voice and kind of cater to youth advocacy, do you feel like, those young people that maybe would prefer to advocate in a different way are kind of being maybe a little bit left out because of the way that organizations kind of advertise what they need?
Yeah, I mean, going off of what Tori said, I mean, like some people definitely feel more comfortable advocating in a group setting, whereas some people feel more comfortable advocating one on one. There's always the fear of like, what if my peers don't accept me, which is where that one on one comes in. But there's also like the fear of being the first one to say something. And so being in a group can help in that manner just to be able to like someone says it first and then everyone else kind of jumps on board. So just like not all agencies, not all of them offer both of those. And so those who feel better doing it one on one don't get to participate as well as they should because they're in a group and vice versa. So
Mhm.
agencies definitely need to focus more on giving both of those opportunities. And I mean, even if there's some that I'm not thinking of, even if it's not like a huge group, but maybe just like 2 or 3, or even like written things, like if they're too scared to say it out loud, just like getting like polls and writing it down and submitting it anonymously kind of deal. But agencies definitely need more outlets, and so when youth show up to these programs and they realize like, oh, this isn't the kind of setting that I'm comfortable in, then it can tend to hinder their voice because the way that they do feel comfortable in isn't offered. So
Right.
like that can tend to be, and then going off of that, it's like, well, I went to this last one and it wasn't comfortable for me. So why would I go to another one? And that leads to youth not saying their voice anymore because they've put in the effort and they weren't seen and it wasn't in the manner that they feel comfortable. So
Mhm.
being in that space, it's like, why would I do that to myself again if they didn't have what I needed last time?
Mhm.
So not only are you impacting the voice of the youth on the specific matter, but now you've impacted their future in advocating for themselves because now they have these trust issues and this like not feeling safe, not feeling comfortable. And then it's like, well, why would I do that again? So
Right.
not only did you just hurt the youth voice in that occasion, but you've also hindered their future.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a lot just like, just organizations being really intentional and purposeful, thoughtful before. I don't think sometimes organizations realize how much prep work is needed, you know, it's like building any great team, it's like being a great leader. There's a lot of prep work, there's a lot of trial and error and transparency that's needed, and I think if organizations could like facilitate a similar perspective, when working with young people, I think that would be really, really helpful. So I know we're kind of running low on time, but before we kind of hop off and I lose y'all's wisdom, I just have 2 questions I want to ask y'all and kind of leave the audience with. But the first one is what's one piece of advice that you have for people or organizations that want to create inclusive spaces for youth and young adults?
I think that if you can bring in someone with lived expertise to consult with you, and I also provide that through my Speak Up program, that can be a really great way to start. But you could even do that with one of your partner organizations that you see doing this really well. I'm sure they would be really excited to share what they're doing, and their youth would also be really excited to advocate in that way. We're all about having more and more and more opportunities. Just because another organization has a youth board or has youth leadership doesn't mean that your organization can't also have a similar program. And maybe some of the same youth will serve on both. I think that's okay. I think the more opportunities we can have, the more saturated we can create our advocacy community. I also would say that prepare your staff through training diligently to be prepared to work with the youth. Don't have this sort of tokenism or bias built up in your mind about the type of youth that you're looking for, but meet your youth where they're at and create a program that's really for the young people that you're serving and really representative of your organization, but also your youth population. And I would also say, some advice for young people who are interested in advocating. We need your voice. We need your voice no matter what level you are feeling comfortable at advocating, and take that first step. We're trying to change foster care here. And if we leave it to the suits and the people who have never been in foster care, it's not going to change in a way that's really person centered. And we need it to change for us and for our people. And in order for that to happen, we need people with lived experience to lead the charge. So we need your voice. Don't be afraid. If you need support, I'm here for you. I'm always happy to provide any support to any person with lived experience. We say young person a lot at Speak Up. I don't care what age you are. I don't care what type of foster care experience you had. You're welcome. You're eligible for my program no matter where you come from in the United States, no matter what your age is, no matter how long ago you were in foster care, no matter if you were in kinship care, foster care, adoptive. It's all the same to me. Your voice matters, and we want you to be part of our movement.
And with that as well, Tori was talking a little bit about making sure that you train your staff. Make
Mhm.
sure that you're choosing agencies and people to train them who are familiar and who know what they're doing, and they're not
Mhm.
just going to train them in a manner of the suits. And like, make sure that you're choosing the right people to take action and prepare your team for this. And the thing about youth advocacy, like Tori was saying, is that agencies who are on top of it and who are all about it, like, they are just willing to give you what you need. Like, if a agency is genuinely passionate about this and you go to them for advice, they're not just going to turn you away and say no, because people who are genuinely like passionate about this, they want to get the word out there. They want to get their voice heard. They want people to all be on the same page. And so they're going to be willing to just help you however you need it. And the youth as well, like the youth who are genuinely passionate about this, they're going to be giving you
Mm.
their opinions. And so you need to look for those kind of people who are not just going to train your employees by the book, by the suits. Like, you need to find someone who's genuinely passionate about this and wants to be doing it. And that's like a really big part in developing these agencies, is making sure that these staff are prepared by the right people.
That's such a good point, because I think sometimes the job, I'm putting air quotes around that, of finding young people, like someone's job to find a young person to bring on their team, oftentimes is written in or kind of implied as yeah, this is just like a really small part of what you do, and we're just going to hand this off to whoever has the least amount of work, and you're just going to go and do that, right? And I think that you brought up a really good point of, well, if you have someone that has no interest in working with young people, has no passion around that, like, I don't like to sit there and read 40-page briefs, I would really hate to have the job to go look and read 40 to 60-page briefs, right? And then my work would reflect that, right? And so I think that's like a really good point of, like, who is the person that we are asking to be, working with these young people, and things like that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know we're out of time and Tori had to go, but I just wanted to say thank you both so much for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. It was really amazing talking to y'all a bit more, and you guys are both going to change the world. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that we can continue to make difference.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.